South Florida radio legend Neil Rogers passed away today. The former talk show king was 68 years old. Local 10's Janine Stanwood is live at one of Rogers' former stations in Miramar tonight. Janine.
And Rob, tonight it was the lead story here at WIOD where Neil Rogers worked when it was in North Bay Village. Some people really liked him on the radio. Other people thought he was a bully, but everyone had an opinion.
Fighting, controversial, fun, nasty, cantankerous.
When you listen to me, you ask me the question.
There have been many colorful words to describe Neil Rogers.
Very, very entertaining.
Was a unique talent, very acerbic.
And how about a great letter?
Timid was never one of them.
Here's a lady in Miami. Hello.
Rogers was born Nelson Roger B. Helfer on November 5th, 1942. He studied broadcasting, but left school to work in radio all over the country, eventually landing at WJNO in West Palm Beach. In 1976, when he started his radio career in Miami Beach at WKAT, he made a decision that would, in part, define him.
One night he came to my house and said, "I'm coming out of the closet tomorrow." So all night I sat with him.
He came out of the closet on the radio, and nobody ever did that before. I mean, he's certainly the first openly gay person on the radio.
His career skyrocketed. No matter which AM station he worked in South Florida, Neil Rogers was a top-rated personality. He wasn't shy about his left-leaning politics, being an atheist, his disdain for bad drivers, co-workers, and tourists.
I remember he made the visiting Canadian tourists crazy when he went nuts on the air about them stealing the sweet and loaves.
No one was safe.
But in June 2009, South Florida's original shock jock would hang up his mic for good at WQAM. The next summer, he would suffer a stroke and a heart attack, and friends and family decided that surgery to repair an artery wasn't worth the pain and risk.
He was great for radio. He really was.
Well, when you're full of it, it comes out easy.
Neil Rogers was 68. And right now, his attorney has asked for privacy. There are no word on funeral arrangements. Rob?
Legend, and he will be missed. Okay, Janine.
South Florida radio icon Neil Rogers passing away at the age of 68 today. Everybody remembers Neil Rogers. His attorney says he died of heart failure at a Broward County hospice. Rogers began his career in 1976 and made his way to the top of South Florida talk radio, becoming known as Miami's shock jock. He retired last year as the highest paid radio host in Miami history.
One of South Florida's greatest voices silenced.
Great guy, great mind, and a wicked sense of humor.
Yeah, he will be definitely missed.
Sad day across South Florida, losing a radio legend. Neil Rogers has passed away. He suffered from heart failure this morning at a Broward County hospice. Rogers began his career in the mid-70s, making his way to the top of South Florida talk radio with his controversial and unapologetic style. He retired last year as the highest paid radio host in Miami history. Neil Rogers was 68 years old.
Yeah, he really knew how to rattle a cage, didn't he?
He absolutely did.
And make people laugh.
And think.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one of them all. From talking to tech.
A celebration of life for a South Florida icon. A final farewell was held yesterday for Neil Rogers, whose voice filled South Florida radio waves for decades. Hundreds of listeners and friends turned out, including familiar faces like longtime radio host Rick Shaw. Rogers was one of the original shock jocks, known for dishing out his bold opinions. Neil Rogers died last month at the age of 68.
A celebration of life for a South Florida icon. A final farewell held yesterday for Neil Rogers, whose voice filled South Florida radio for decades. Hundreds of listeners and friends turned out, including familiar faces like longtime radio host Rick Shaw. Rogers was one of the original shock jocks, known for dishing out bold opinions. He died last month. He was 68 years old.
It is 17, 23, 45, 51, 69, bada beep, bada boop, you got it?
That's South Florida broadcasting legend Neil Rogers. He passed away after suffering heart problems for the past year. He was 68. To some, Rogers was a breath of fresh air. Others called him offensive. But throughout his 33 years on radio in South Florida, Rogers was blunt, honest, and passionate.
Neil had two personalities. One was the bombastic on-the-air Neil. The other was the very quiet, almost timid Neil off the air. You almost had to pull words out of him. I went one day to Hialeah with him. He barely said a word to me all day. Then at the end of the day, he said, "Hey, this was great. We got to do this again."
Rogers courted controversy early. Just a year after starting at WKAT Radio, he came out as gay. It was right in the middle of a heated era when Anita Bryant was hailing an anti-homosexual ordinance in Dade County. But that's just a small part of Rogers' divisive on-air persona. By birth, he was Jewish, but he mocked all organized religion, infuriating Catholics with his attacks on the Pope. He called South Florida an outdoor funeral home, and he spoke out strongly against the Mariel immigration from Cuba in 1980.
I was among many people in the market to get attacked by Neil, and it never really bothered me because a knock from Neil was almost a boost. It meant you mattered, and I think a lot of people in the market felt that way.
It was that outspoken liberal stance that had audiences following him from station to station across the SFL over the years. In fact, Rogers was the first South Florida radio personality known to make more than $1 million a year.
Neil was a great entertainer. He made people laugh. He made people think. He provoked them. He made them angry. But most of all, he entertained.
Radio host Neil Rogers will be receiving hospice care after previously planned open-heart surgery was canceled. The longtime South Florida radio personality has been battling serious health problems after suffering a stroke and heart attack that happened this year. Local 10's Janine Stanwood has reaction now from some of his closest friends and colleagues.
He was supposed to be operated on today. And anyway, hospice is set there.
Longtime friends of radio legend Neil Rogers have been by his side these last few days. Word from Rogers' attorney: after a summer recovering from a stroke and a heart attack, surgery for an artery blockage now is, quote, inappropriate. Rogers is going home.
I mean, he's struggling.
Duff Lindsay is Rogers' former station manager at WQAM. Craig Worthing was a fellow radio host and has known Rogers longer than most.
He was great for radio. He really was. He did things that a lot of us were jealous of. Not only jealous of how well he did, but jealous of things he could do the rest of us couldn't get away with.
The spirit of Neil compels you.
In June 2009, Rogers hung up his mic after 12 years at WQAM, and nearly 20 years before that, insulting, enlightening, dazzling, and bewildering South Florida radio listeners.
See, it's great hearing from the nice people.
It was over the top every single day.
Lindsay says there isn't another voice like his on the airwaves, and there probably won't be.
I think we lost more than a voice. We lost Miami's local radio star.
They all knew what a talented son of a gun he was, and what a good guy he is.
Neil Rogers' attorney tells us that he, along with family and friends, will probably be moving him out of here, Westside Regional, and taking him home probably tomorrow. Calvin Lurie friends tell us that Neil Rogers remains in good humor. They couldn't imagine.
A public memorial is being held today for South Florida talk radio legend Neil Rogers. He passed away last month at the age of 68. Local 10's Nikki Mohan is live in Wilton Manors, where Rogers Memorial is taking place later on this afternoon. Nikki?
Christy, all fans and friends are welcome to celebrate here in Wilton Manors at the Center for Spiritual Living. It starts at 3 o'clock. They say this is the perfect place to have it because even though Neil Rogers was not a fan of organized religion, he did have plenty of fans. The sanctuary is set here at the Center for Spiritual Living. The ceremony will include, it's a celebration of life. They're not calling it a funeral, they're not calling it a memorial per se. Will include comments from his longtime friend and attorney Norman Kent and radio personality Rick Shaw. That's who we know is on the program right now. Rogers passed away Christmas Eve of last year, and he has been cremated. There will be no body present here in the sanctuary. He was famous for many years, over 30 years on radio here in South Florida. He is the first South Florida shock jock. No one was safe from his criticism. He was especially famous for coming out on the radio in 1975, even though he did not make it a mantra to be known as a gay talk show host. Many people are fans of Rogers, fans or foes. Everybody listened to him. He was very, very, very popular. Even the pastor who will officiate here today was a big fan.
It's a tribute, certainly. I think what I know about Neil, and I used to listen to him in the early 90s at first, when I first came here, but what I know about him is that he never sacrificed his personal principles, not even for a special occasion. He was really a very authentic man, and so we're really pleased to be able to host this and have this be a tribute to somebody who really made a positive difference in the life of people in South Florida and beyond.
The ceremony gets started today here at 3 o'clock. They say it's really going to be a celebration of life. It's going to be very, very lively. Christy and JC, they said that Rogers left no plans at the end or left no instructions as to how he wanted to be remembered. Again, he spoke on the air several times. He was not a big fan of organized religion. He was a self-proclaimed agnostic. But the pastor insists that the celebration of life they have planned here today will definitely be something that he would have been proud of and he would be happy to have had.
Okay, should be an interesting afternoon. Thank you so much, Nikki. And here's a bit more information on this afternoon's memorial for Neil Rogers. That celebration of his life will be taking place at the Center for Spiritual Living. That's in Wilton Manors. The service begins.
Neil didn't believe in funerals. He believed that life was for the living. He didn't go to his mom's own funeral, so he wouldn't have endorsed this, shall we say? But you know, we're going to do it anyway because I think that funerals are for the living, and we need this. We need to get together and share and talk about what he meant to all of us. You know, and get it out of our systems. That's what you're supposed to do at a funeral, and Neil doesn't get to, he doesn't get away with it. You know, he's not going to be allowed to check out without us having a memorial service for him.
Marveling all afternoon. Being here is almost like looking at the history of Miami radio. But I also, thought struck me, sitting here listening to the wonderful tributes, that the one person who wouldn't be here today, under any circumstances, I can almost hear him saying, I wouldn't be caught dead there.
And I think your presence here today is testimony to the truth that you saw through to Neil's core, that you took him in as you would a member of your own family, that you miss him because he enriched your life with humor and heart, and now I'm tempted to say go out and have a knish. Because as you leave here, remember that Neil would laugh at you for being here, for wasting your time listening to me, of all people. And he would probably say, besides, it's Friday, you bastards.
There are many reasons to give him credit for making people think in South Florida. And one of the things I also have to think we need to give him credit for is introducing Yiddish to, as I said in my obit, people who wouldn't know, you know, gefilte fish from garbanzo beans.
Neil God, he was a religion to a lot of people, a cult following, whatever you want to call it, way bigger than a cult following by definition of that, but certainly a cult. We have our own jargon. We speak in drops. We speak Yiddish. I know Yiddish more than any 10 other Jews, and I'm not one. Because of that, you can spot a Neely. You can spot a Neely. You'll be at line in the supermarket, and somebody will say something about 30. We can spot each other whether you're wearing the T-shirt, fanny pack, or not. And nobody else had it. Neil would talk about, you know, Miami, we would talk about terrorism. What are the terrorists going to bomb? We don't have a monument. We had one. We had something that nobody else had. That was the one thing that nobody else had. And people would come in from out of town and notice that, and they would go back to their town and say, oh no, that Neil Rogers. You know, even Howard had to comment. People from out of town, they had to comment. That was Neil Rogers, a local phenomenon for no good reason, if you ask me.
It's important for me because for the last 20 years I've listened to him both when I was vacationing here and then on the internet in New York, and then for the last 10 years living in Cocoa, Florida. He was something I had to do every day almost to listen to him, and what didn't come through today was his political views, which I happen to agree with, and the word wasn't used today, but he was an absolute critic of hypocrisy, especially among politicians. And he was just a very truth teller, is what he was.
A court battle is brewing over late radio show host Neil Rogers' estate. In his final weeks, Rogers signed off on 2 different wills, one in which he left his entire estate to his 21-year-old companion, and another equally dividing his estate between his companion, his roommate, and an old friend. His companion's attorney argues that Rogers suffered from dementia and didn't have the mental capacity to sign the second will. The decision is likely to be made by a Broward judge.